Hi guys, Scott Woodward with you with our ratings for Origin 3 on Wednesday night. What we've done is we've rated each one of the 17 players for New South Wales and Queensland out of 10, and we have a cumulative total for each one of the teams, breaking them down in the forwards and backs and also the bench. Give you a little idea of how we see the strengths and the weaknesses of both teams. The ratings are done largely off our statistical database. It's very stats heavy, but also very heavily weighted towards recent form, particularly late 2013 and players that we think will rise under pressure games, certainly like what we've got on Wednesday night. The bottom line is we rated New South Wales 129.5 and the Queensland team 132.5, which gives Queensland 3 points advantage over New South Wales. Now, 3 points is not a hell of a lot, but the Queensland running team is 132.5, which is consistent how they've been over the last 7 years. So they haven't changed a great deal. The big change is Lockyer has retired and Cooper Cronk has come in. It can be argued that Lockyer was a better player, but Cooper Cronk is a better organiser and a better tactical kicker and a better talker. So maybe this is a superior team to what it was when Lockyer was in the team. That's certainly an opinion. But as far as the two teams are concerned, they're both outstanding teams. There's no doubt about that. And as we'll see from the ratings, that the major edge that Queensland have got is in their 6 and 7. Johnathan Thurston we rate 9.5 out of 10. Cooper Cronk 8 out of 10, as opposed to New South Wales. The two halves, James Maloney and Mitchell Pearce, rate both 6.5 out of 10. So we've got two 6.5s versus a 9.5 and an 8. That's some monumental advantage that Queensland have got over New South Wales. As far as the forwards are concerned, New South Wales have an edge in the forwards and they have an edge on the bench. So overall, the big edge for Queensland is in the backs. Now, as we saw in Origin 1, if Queensland don't get on the front foot and they don't get good go forward, the backs don't get much of a look in. And that happened in Origin 2. And the Queensland backs look like world beaters, and let me tell you, they're not world beaters. So it's a little bit deceptive, that game. It was certainly played up in Brisbane Suncorp Stadium. I was there. It's a cauldron, and I can certainly understand why it's hard for a visitor to play well there. And I can certainly understand how it would be very difficult for a referee not to give the 50-50 calls to the home side. It's a very, very intimidating environment. We have an intimidating environment on Wednesday night, ANZ at Homebush. And certainly we'll talk a little bit about some of the stats from that ground on the plays in a second. But just to run through the players, wanted to start off with the two fullbacks. Billy Slater rates 8.5 out of 10. Josh Dugan 8 out of 10 with a big P. P means progress. We certainly think that Josh Dugan can get to 8.5. He's certainly on the way up, and quite frankly, he's untapped. We just don't know how good he is. If he can grow up and get his mind on the job and play to his full potential, he can do things that Billy Slater can't do. He's got a much better sidestep than Billy Slater. For instance, breaks tackles better than Billy Slater. But Billy Slater is a wonderful fullback, plays brilliantly, always in good position, takes bombs on the fall, and just gets the ball back into play and gets his forwards on the front foot brilliantly. I've got no doubt if Josh Dugan plays to his best, he will equal or better anything that Billy Slater can put up on Wednesday night. So New South Wales aren't put back at all with Dugan playing fullback. I thought he was the best back for New South Wales up in Queensland. Let's have a look at the wings. Brett Morris, Darius Boyd. Brett Morris, I think, is the best left winger in the world. Rate him 8.5. He hasn't got too many weaknesses in his game. Can be a little bit suspect under the bomb, but overall he's just a brilliant left winger. Having said that, there's a chance he may play on the right wing to play alongside of his brother in the centres. We don't know that at this stage. Darius Boyd, he's not really a winger, but he's such a class act, he goes fine. He's a 7 out of 10, doesn't make any mistakes, and he has the luxury of playing on the outside of the great Greg Inglis. The other wingers, James McManus, 6.5 out of 10. He's a finisher. He's there because he'll probably play good position. He won't run in and do anything stupid. I'm assuming that's why he's there. He certainly wouldn't be in my team. I wouldn't say he's a weakness, but he's not a strength. He's a 6.5 out of 10, as opposed to Brent Tate, a 7.5 out of 10. He's not your typical winger Brent Tate, but when there's a rep game on, he just comes out of his skin. He's just an amazing player, and I'm sure he'll have another good game again on Wednesday night. Let's look at the centres. New South Wales have Michael Jennings and Josh Morris, two great centres, 8 and 7.5. Michael Jennings, an 8, is in outstanding form, having his best year under the Roosters. Josh Morris, I prefer him on the other side. He's been caught out of position a couple of times against Greg Inglis. I would love to see him in a little bit of room, a little bit of position with the ball where he can actually do something. He's been largely a defensive centre. Hasn't had much of an opportunity to attack at all so far in the Origin series. Greg Inglis, well, if he's not the best player in the world, he's certainly the second best player in the world, and he's just unbelievable. He played a lot of game time in the second row up in Brisbane, swapping over with McQueen. I'm sure he'll do something similar again. He's a 9.5 out of 10. They don't get much better than Greg Inglis. Justin Hodges is past his best, but he's a class act. He's down to a 7.5 now. I'm sure he will do very well when they want him to. He can miss tackles laterally, and Michael Jennings definitely can get around him. There's no doubt about that, and certainly the other way around. He can certainly get around Michael Jennings. They'll have a great contest, those two guys. Look, we touched on the halves. James Maloney and Michael Pearce are the two Roosters halves. They were fine in Origin 1, largely because the forwards did a great job, and I thought the kicking game was good. But they wouldn't be in my team. I think the South Sydney 6 and 7 are far superior based on 2013 form and based on short tactical kicking skills. I certainly would have had both the 6 and 7 from South Sydney in this game. As far as Queensland are concerned, Johnathan Thurston is the best player I've seen since 2005, since Andrew Johns retired. He's still the #1 player in the world, in my opinion, and he rates him 9.5. Just a brilliant player. He just carved them up in Origin 2, and if he does that again, Queensland will be winning. There's no doubt about that. Cooper Cronk, brilliant thinker, brilliant talker, a brilliant tactical kicker, but he was unable to do that in Origin 1 because his forwards didn't give him any go forward. He'll be counting very strongly on good field position from his forwards again. Let's have a look at the forwards now. This is an edge where New South Wales have got an advantage. We just spoke about the backs. The backs total 51.5 for New South Wales. Queensland totaled 57.5. That's a monumental 6 points advantage in the backs, and that's clearly the big edge that Queensland have got. They absolutely kill New South Wales in the backs. There's no doubt about that. Let's have a look at the forwards. The starting forward pack, we rate 46.5 for New South Wales and 46 in Queensland. So there's not a monumental difference there. They're pretty close together, only a half-point advantage to New South Wales. But the big advantage that New South Wales have is on the bench, 31.5 as opposed to 29 for Queensland. That's a 2.5-point advantage for 4 players off the bench. So New South Wales have got a big advantage there. Andrew Fifita, Trent Marin, Anthony Watmough and Boyd Cordner are 4 outstanding players who will all make an impact when they come on. There's no doubt about that. Queensland have got Ben Teo, Matt Gillett and Josh Papalii, and of course Daly Cherry Evans, who is a halfback, but he did very well in Origin 3 when he come on and played like a lock position. He's such a good defender and he's such a strong little guy. He's quite able to get away with that. But you can do it when your team is on the front foot and your forwards have done well. I wouldn't want to bring him on when the forwards can't get in good field position, and so they've got a bit of a problem there if they happen to be behind the 8 ball. Let's talk about the starting forwards. Queensland yet again have gone with one specialist prop forward, Matt Scott. They got away with it in Origin 2 because New South Wales gave a dumb penalty away in the first couple of seconds, and the 5'8" James Maloney missed the tackle and they conceded the try, and from then on it was all downhill. and Queensland, it was all Queensland from there, and so consequently they were able to get away with one specialist prop, and the athletic back rowers were just too good for New South Wales. They just killed them. If that happens again, we'll get the same result. If what happens in Origin 1, where the big forwards for New South Wales were able to gain superiority in the middle of the field, then New South Wales will have a great chance. And certainly I think that the forward pack is better this time around, even without Paul Gallen. You might think that's a big statement. Let me tell you why I can back that up. Firstly, Aaron Woods, I think, is very promising, and I think he'll be a rep forward for many years to come. He's only young, but he's big, and he will go forward, and he has got some ball skills. I don't expect him to be on for all that long, maybe 15 minutes. I think that Laurie Daly will be very keen to get Andrew Fifita on there. Andrew Fifita can play big minutes. Twice this year, he's made over 200 metres in a club game. He's big, he's fast, and he's got all the skills in the world. And based on current form, he rates as the best front row forward in the world today. That's a monumental call given where he's come from in the last couple of years. We rate Andrew Fifita 8.5 out of 10. Just quickly going through those ratings: Aaron Wood 7, James Tamou 8. That's based on promise. He hasn't played like an 8 in the last couple of months, but we know what he can do, and we know that he wants to put in a big one. He got dropped for the last game, let me say suspended for the last game, and he owes the team and he owes the coach, and he knows that he has to stand up without going in the side. I'm expecting a big game from James Tamou as the new forward leader. Luke Lewis, world class, 8 out of 10. Ryan Hoffman, a consistent go forward player. I've been a little bit disappointed with him in the first 2 Origins. He's a 7 out of 10. Greg Bird, a 7.5 out of 10, but quite capable of getting a higher rating than that. Jax lacks a little bit of size. I would certainly like him to be bigger. And I would think somebody like a Trent Marin to come in and play like forward like he does for St George, that bigger body, I think will be happening a fair bit in Origin 3. Because Paul Gallen is not playing, the big plus for New South Wales is Andrew Fifita and Trent Marin are going to get a lot more minutes, and that's a big plus for New South Wales. They're both in form, they're both big, mobile, got all the skills in the world, and I think that will mean that the New South Wales backs, the centres, will get a lot more ball than what they'd get if Gallen was there. Gallen tends to take the ball, stick it under his wing, and make wonderful yardage, and he has wonderful stats. Wonderful personal stats that doesn't necessarily go to the team. And I'm not saying he's not a team player, it's just the way that he plays. I'll point out a stat that the Sharks, his club team, have won 7 games this year out of 7. They've won 5 out of 7 this year without Paul Gallen playing for them. So, you can read into that how you like, but because he hasn't been there, other guys like Andrew Fifita have really been able to shine. Andrew Fifita and Luke Lewis have come into their own without Paul Gallen on the field. And if that translates into New South Wales on Wednesday night, you'll see a wonderful performance from New South Wales. There's no doubt that the skill is there. Anthony Watmough, I think, has also been down in the last couple of weeks, but he's a class act and we know what he can do. He's certainly an impact player. One of the major pluses for me is Boyd Cordner. Reynolds has been dropped out of the team and Boyd Cordner comes in, and this guy is just enthusiastic personified. He hits everything with energy, he'll hit the ball up well, and importantly, he's a wonderful defender. And from a coach's point of view, he can play him right, he can play him left, he can run up the middle, he can play on the edges, and he's just a team player. And when he comes on, he will energise the team. So Boyd Cordner, we rate him at 8 out of 10, and he could be anything. Watmough we rate a 7, only because his form has been down, but he can certainly do better than that. Trent Marin is an 8. He's 23. I think he's the brightest young forward in the NRL. Got a wonderful future and will be a rep player for another 10 years, I think. Great little talent. Now, that all adds up to a very, very good New South Wales forward pack. It's an outstanding forward pack, and they have an edge on Queensland there. Just quickly talking about Queensland, Matt Scott did a wonderful job in Origin 2. He's the only genuine prop forward in the Queensland team, and the reason why he did well is because they got on the front foot straight away, and he was able to do that. He struggled a fair bit in Origin 1, and if New South Wales get the ascendancy early, on Wednesday night, Matt Scott will be there all by his own. He'll look around and say, where's my help? And guess what? He hasn't got any. There's no other genuine props in that side. He's got to rely on makeshift props like Nate Myles, like Chris McQueen, like Sam Thaiday, and Matt Gillett, Benteo can even come on and play a little bit up the middle. But they're really edge players, and there's not really what they do. So there's some makeshift front rowers here. Corey Parker is just a wonderful player, and he'll be a high work rate guy, and he will play up the middle at lock forward. And I just don't think I've ever seen Corey Parker put in a bad game. I was blown away that Queensland didn't play him in the first game. So look, Matthew Scott, we rate 7.5. He certainly has been an 8 in previous years, but his form has been down in 2013. Nate Myles, also a 7.5. He would never make my top 13 Australian team. But he's a tough guy, but lacks a lot of skill, doesn't look dangerous with the ball. Chris McQueen, wonderful club player, would never have him in my rep team. Sam Thaiday, I think, has been way down on form, had the best game I've seen him in 2 years in Origin 2. He was just simply wonderful, and he looked good running at a little 5'8". I don't think he'll have the same luxury to do that. I think the minders from New South Wales will do a better job on their little guys, and he won't have the luxury of running into little guys like he did before. Daly Evans, I think, has the potential to take over as the best player in the world when Johnathan Thurston retires. I think he'll be the Queensland and Australian half for many years after Cronk has retired. He's just a wonderful player. Don't know if I'd have him on the bench. I certainly would have had Ben Barber there in place of him. I think that is a genuine impact. Benteo, Matt Gillett, Josh Papalii. That's 7-7 and the 7.5. Those guys, they're terrific players, and I think it's about as good as what Queensland can do. But I think the New South Wales bench has more impact on it. And if New South Wales can get the ascendancy up the middle, and the halves, the 6 and 7, can give them a good kicking game, there's not going to be much in this game. Just some quick stats, and I won't bore you too much. I know everyone's been giving you stats all over the place. I talked about the Gillett factor. Cronulla go better without Gillett. I think New South Wales will go better without Gillett as well. And that sounds incredible given the status of the man and the wonderful contribution that he's made. And I think the speech that he made to his players on Friday was probably the best contribution that he can make. They will all rev up for him, and he's been a wonderful contributor. But the fact of the matter is, I think New South Wales will go better without him in the team. I think you'll see more skills, more ball getting out wide without him there, because he's such a dominant player. He polarises the team and he demands it and he takes it up. It's a little bit like Hindmarsh with Parramatta. They don't see things that are on out wide, and they're missed. And I think you'll find having guys like Fifita and Merrin with more ball, they won't be missed on Wednesday night. I'd like to point out that New South Wales have either won or not been beaten by more than 10 points in all of their 20 matches played at Homebush. So they either win or they don't get beat by more than 2 tries. So there's never been a blowout at Homebush. This is a big advantage playing at Homebush. The Queensland Origin team have only won 25% of their games at Homebush, Sydney's ANZ. That's 5 wins from 20 games. That's 25% record, and the bookmakers have got them at $1.55. So that doesn't correlate. I'm not saying the $1.55 is the wrong odds, but if you're taking $1.55 about a team winning, you certainly would want them to have a better win rate at a ground than 25%. I'll also point out to you that there's been 4 Origin match deciders played at ANZ, and Queensland have only won 50% of them. So they've won 2 out of the 4 games that have been decided there. So that's 50%. Once again, not ideal when you're taking $1.55 a team. There's no question that New South Wales love playing at ANZ, and there's no question that Queensland don't like playing at ANZ. If this game was played on a neutral ground and if it was played at Suncorp, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation. I think most people would concede that Queensland will win 8 series in a row because it's played at ANZ and because some of the tinkering that's happened to the New South Wales team, despite some of the media you might have read. I think there's a lot of upside for the New South Wales. I think you're going to see a new Paul Gallen put his hand up and say, I'm going to be the new forward leader of New South Wales. And I think you're going to see some exciting young players come out of this side. And I, for one, have got a wonderful opinion of Josh Dugan. I think he's potentially the best player in New South Wales. We haven't seen that yet, but I think he has that God-given talent. And I think next Wednesday night is a good time for him to put his hand up and say, I've arrived on the Origin scene. I'm here. So there it is. There's our ratings. The ratings say that Queensland will win this game, but it also says that there's not going to be much in this game. It's going to be a bounce of the ball. It's going to be a referee's decision. Whatever happens, it'll be a wonderful game. And whoever you follow, good luck. I hope you enjoy the game. I know I certainly will. Cheers.